Hey, everybody. You are about to hear a brief retelling of the movie Locked Up. Enjoy the movie. Avery Montgomery is a student, a young father, and a talented swimmer. He hopes sports will help provide for his family, but his buddy Kashmir makes a living selling wheels and isn't shy about it. Broadway's bargainer didn't pay him back all his debt, so he had to throw him down the stairs for educational purposes and threaten him with a gun so that tomorrow he would pay him back every dime he owes him. Dre is an honest working man, a barber. He's been friends with Kashmir and Avery since childhood and happens to be his wife Krista's brother. Kashmir tries to lure him in, but he's afraid his sister and mom will skin him if she finds out about it. To get the dough, Broadway decided to rob a diner, but the girl cashier panicked and got shot in the back. The bandit immediately left the scene. Friends arrived at the competition and started yelling at the top of their voices when their friend came to the pool. It is important to win today, then he will get an athletic scholarship to college, and he managed to be the first to finish. Meanwhile, Broadway decided to set Kashmir up and threw a gun in his wheelbarrow that he used to shoot the cashier. What Avery didn't realize was that not only was his wife watching his swim, but also sports scout Charles Pierce. He represents several colleges that might be interested in the young talent. Pierce left the athlete his card. Avery at first wanted to refuse to get in the car with his friends, but Krista said she didn't mind and the athlete jumped in. The friends had fun until Dre discovered a gun under the seat. They tried to figure out whose it was and all three of them fumbled with the weapon. The guys decided to throw the gun away, but it was too late. The cops were on their tail because the card looked like the one that shot the girl today. Kashmir pulled over, guns were pointed at the friends, and they were ordered to get out with their hands up. Kashmir started to emerge, the others tried to calm him down, but then Pitbull decided to protect his master and jumped on the cops. They shot him, angry gangster picked up a gun and was also wounded. All three were arrested. The court found them guilty and each received 10 years in prison. Solid fences and walls, barbed wire and towers with snipers. The newcomers were all stripped and sent to the showers. Friends were scattered in different cells. In order not to look like a sucker in the eyes of other cons, Cash immediately began to bully and yell at the guard. He also showed his temper. In his cell, he took a cigarette from his neighbor without asking. Knight wanted to get acquainted, but Cash just jumped on the poor guy, broke him and burned his face with a cigarette. The neighbor is an intelligent man everyone here calls Mo. The athlete wanted the same thing as his friend, but Mo pinned him to the bars and advised him not to fool around. He's been here for 18 years, he's getting out in 2 months and shouldn't be forced to do bad things. It was also time for Dre to meet his roommate. The newcomer praised ARIAN's painting and the latter invited him to sit down and look at the pictures in the Japanese comic. Another supporter of white supremacy quietly entered the cell and Graffiti stopped pretending. Graffiti pulled down Dre's pants and the poor guy was lowered into his first day behind bars. In the hallway, Kesh called out to Avery and he was immediately clubbed by the guard. The gangster also got a beating. Avery asks Mo to tell him about the local customs, but he wants nothing more to do with Kashmir. He could have been close now if it wasn't for the gangster's buddy. Former friends sent each other. Reputable gangster's old friend of Cash, nicknamed Clean, introduced him to the black fraternity. He was accepted into the gang and invited to leave the ball. Avery told Mo what he was doing in the wild. Unlike Ever, Mo has no family. He's been here so long that his family has forgotten he exists, and he has no idea what he'll do on the outside. A crying, battered Dre won't get out of his bunk. Cleaner tells us how things are going here. Guard Hines is in on it and Mexican Perez is in the Graffiti hearing. They have a war going on here. There are 2 more warring Mexican gangs. The fat black man is Luis, a former soccer player. He leads with Graffiti and takes away the increased earnings and for some reason believes that untouchable. In the morning, all the Zakas were brought out into the hallway to be searched. Perez found a knife in Avery's mattress and took the dazed newcomer in for questioning. Hines asked Dre what was wrong with his face, but he wouldn't say anything. Avery was released, having been given his first and last warning. Mo decided to see if his neighbor could be trusted. Dre complained to the cleaners that his former friend was giving him a hard time, and the authorities called the neighbors to play with them. It's a way to mess with a black brother without getting hit on. Hines was the only one left in the yard, and he let his dudes do the deed. As usual, Lewis was shuttling between the balls and the cons, doing the work of a messenger, but when he lay down on the exercise machine, a cleaner man came up and dropped a barbell on his throat. No one saw anything, just an ordinary accident. In the dining room, Mo warned Evert to stay away from Dre. He'd already been put down, he was Graffiti's property. Clean's girlfriend Carla helps him run his business and delivers the goods inside her to the prison, but the second girl wasn't allowed in because she has a black mark, so half the substances he's missing. Krista came to Avery's, even though he asked his wife not to. He's a lowlife who's lost everything. She should forget about him. 10 years is a long time, and the sooner they break up the better. Krista said she contacted Scout Pierce and he promised to help. Pierce believes in Avery's innocence, so he wants to help him, but the athlete needs to be discreet and not do anything stupid. Graffiti, balloons with goods are handed to a prostitute, he swallows them, and then gets the backside. Perez asks him not to avenge Luis, otherwise if lawlessness starts about any business can be forgotten, but as soon as the guard left, Graffiti demanded to bring him a razor. Wheelman, with Geitz's approval, stopped by the restroom and picked up the merchandise. The cleaner hit on him because there was too little powder, but that's all Carla brought, no more. To compete with Graffiti, they need to find a new supplier, one without a black mark, and Purgatory remembered the ivory wife he'd spotted on a date. A tank of dirty laundry rolled up to the frat house. Inside lay a shredded black convict. Graffiti got his revenge. Pierce tried talking to a police officer because the trio's Mustang in custody was ruthless, unlike the robber's Mustang, but they had a gun and no alibi. So the woman has nothing to add to what she's already laid out in the report. Graffiti beats and rapes Dre every day. Kashmir is tickling his neighbor and Avery is trying to keep in shape. He's having a hard time living in a cage. He is bewailing and can't find a place to live. Avery wrote a letter to his wife, apologized and asked her to come and see him. The girl is worried about her brother Dre, who has never called or replied to any of her letters. Avery lies that they live in different blocks and he has not seen him. Avery decided to fulfill his promise and despite Mo's protests went to Dre's cell, who had just started beating Graffiti because his slave had left the cell without permission. Dre finally tried to fight back, but the Ambo quickly got over him and started kicking him in the hallway. Avery saw it and jumped on the scumbag, but the White brothers dragged him away, and now Mo had to rescue his neighbor. During the fight, he threw the Nazi over the railing and he fell down from a great height. Eventually the guards pulled the two men apart. The white man was released and the black man was left in the lockup. Clean was respected. Too bad he's in solitary now and can't work with him. Nate did the work and delivered the boxes. The wheelchair guy started hitting on him and wouldn't let him pass. Kashmir, who had been harassing him since day one, joined in, and Purgatory decided that Nate needed to chill and ordered him locked in the refrigerator. Pierce is not happy with his ward, he's breaking discipline again, it could really hurt him. Mo heard their conversation and decided to save his young friend. The disciplinary commission lied that he was the instigator of the fight, and to be believed he played a performance by attacking the members of the commission, which led to the fact that Mo was added to the term and transferred to another prison, but the man does not regret anything. He hopes to meet Avery on the outside and teach him how to swim. Clean has figured out a way to get Graffiti off his back. He and Kashmir intimidate Dre, saying that soon his ass will suffer again and that ARIAN will have to be taken down before he does. In prison, Dre started shooting up and the authority figure gave him a dose to cheer him up. Pierce's daughter is a lawyer. She told Christie that the day her husband was arrested, a gangster named Broadway was also arrested for attempted robbery. He and his accomplice killed 2 clerks and a cop in a white Mustang. The accomplice was shot and Broadway received a life sentence. Mo left his friend his book, and for good reason. Inside it was a hidden blade. A newcomer entered Avery's cell with uncertain footsteps and tried to attack him. Avery said the same words as Mo during their first meeting. Kesh chased Nate out of the cell to talk to Avery. He suggested they stop feuding and stick together, and they could also walk out of here rich. It would be enough to set Krista up with his bar girl on the outside to get him to pass the ball to her. Avery freaked out at that suggestion, meaning it would take Krista going to jail now and their son being orphaned. Kashmir started intimidating his friend, saying his roommate is gone and the athlete is on his own. He will get protection in exchange for a favor, and this is what the man he grew up with tells him. Avery asked him not to contact him anymore and to stay away from him. Nate overheard them talking. Krista came to Broadway's prison and demanded that the thug tell how everything really happened. To appease the convict, the girl showed him a picture of her son, but the evil gangster thinks only about his worthless fate and the fact that he will never go free again. He spat at Krista and hung up. The girl's plan didn't work. A Christian choir was brought to the prison and all the convicts were seated on chairs to listen to the performances. While high on drugs, Dre attacked Graffiti with a shiv and killed him and stabbed him in the neck. For this, an angry Perez smashed him over the head with a club with all his might. A crying Avery called Christy to tell her that her brother was dead. That night, Broadway hanged himself in his cell, leaving a letter for Christy. Nate snitched on Purgatory and the convict was thrown in lockup so that nothing would be done to him. The next time Carla came to the prison, she was tied up and Kashmir was told that his neighbor was being transferred to another prison. Christy was handed a letter from Broadway right in the cemetery, and he confessed to the crime he had committed. Cleaner found out the cops took Carla and blamed it on Kashmir. He's been running his business for 3 years and never had a problem, and if it's not him, it's 100% his buddy Avely. He just found out about the scheme. Cash has to atone for his slip-up and take down the swimmer in the yard today, or else then he's a dead man. In the shower, Kashmir got the guns by removing the metal handle from the pail, and in the chamber, he started sharpening the pond. Meanwhile, Krista and Pierce brought the judge a suicide confession. The new guy warned the neighbor that Kashmir was going to kill him today in the yard. If anything, he's ready to watch his back. People close to him are on their way to jail, not realizing that Ivory's life hangs in the balance. The boy went out into the yard, not knowing from which direction he should expect an attack. Purgatory appeared among the crowd and looked out for his former friend. A basketball rolled into the corner of the white fraternity. Graphic's friend took advantage of this to attack a black convict with a shiv. A mass brawl broke out. The Mexicans knew what was brewing and also put up a showdown, stabbing the guard to death. They tried to strangle the guard, but the woman escaped. Perez also tried to escape, but he was mobbed by the crowd. A wheelchair user broke the neck of another guard, and he himself was kicked. The task force armed itself and prepared to quell the riot. The prison yard was pelted with smoke bombs. Unfortunately, during the fight, Avery's neighbor's throat was slit. Suddenly, Kashmir attacked him and wounded him. A fight broke out between the old friends. Cash climbed on top and was ready to stab Avery in the throat, but he couldn't do it. He helped his friend up and immediately got stabbed in the back by Purgatory. Avery had to fight for his life again, but Cash was able to pull the knife out of his back and stab the authority figure with it. "But what will you forgive me now?" he asked Avery. They wanted to hug, but the snipers mistook it for another attempted attack and shot Kashmir. Soon Avery was released. The last 6 months had been a nightmare for him, but now he was back to his family and training with the hope of a happy future.